Ah, yes. Life is good here as the master of explosions. No one can surpass me, and I am comfortable here. Now what, bitch? Teostra is the next in the relatively short line of Arch Tempered Elder Dragons to hit in Monster Hunter World. And what is so special about this newly shiny and metallic megalodon of conflagration? Well, honestly, not a whole lot, but it does affect the fight greatly. That's right, Arch Tempered Teostra does actually come with a single new move. He sort of cuddles his face up into the ground and does a really short-range explosion, which is essentially just an entirely anti-melee move, and it works. It is hard to avoid due to the speed of the attack, and it just fills up a little hole in his kit, as he had a sort of long-range blast powder thing, and he has a medium-range blast powder thing, but now he has this short-range blast powder thing, and the crazy thing is it actually affects those other two moves as well, because now he has short-range blast powder right around his face on both the medium and long-range blast powder attacks, which means that his face is just no longer a safe place to be. Other than the singular new move and the extra mechanics that came along with it, the other additions are his crazily doubled health pool, which makes him an absolute tank, which does of course make sense, as he attacks the same way as a literal tank. He also has the classic Arch Tempered attack buff of 25 to 50%, depending on the attack, which is actually super noticeable against him due to his incredible speed. 25 to 50% bonus attack on an Elder like Val only made it dangerous for the beam, but the extra attack power on Teo makes it entirely possible that he will just keep you pinned down and keep attacking you until you die without leaving you any opportunity to heal. Because when you think about it, his main deal is that he's fast. Other than the supernova, it's all the fast attacks, and fucking hell, when those are buffed, it hurts. Now, AT&T, and yeah, I know you could call him ATT, but AT&T already has this sweet convenient logo for me to use. So for now, he will be called Arch Tempered and Teostra. And Arch Tempered and Teostra does have one really cool change, so I guess you would just call it a scripted part of the quest, so it isn't really a change to him. But this scripted event is the arrival of Kushala Daora for a turf war. But it isn't just a regular Kushala, is it? This is Arch Tempered Kushala Daora, and while he is only around for a short period of time so we can have a turf war with Teo and get out, you can actually extend this by paralyzing or sleeping or even mounting Teo when Kushala arrives, cancelling the turf war and just making him exist in the zone for a couple of minutes. And if you are particularly inclined, it is actually possible to kill Arch Tempered Kushala in the time that he's there. Just ask Team Darkside, and they will make sure that you know that all you need is a small group of well-coordinated hunters with Devil Joe heavy bowguns. Well, I didn't spot any particular new moves on this Kushala. I do have one really upsetting thing to note. Flashing him in the air doesn't make him fall down. It does have the regular flash effect of him no longer attacking the specific target as he's blind, but it doesn't knock him down. He sort of reacts the same way as Lunastra does when flashed, except for the fact that he'll never react to being flashed with a supernova. Thank God, because I don't think I could handle that. Speaking of flashes and supernovas, one thing to be absolutely relieved about is that Arch Tempered Teostra can still be flashed the exact same amount of times as any regular tempered monster, with his cap landing at 4, which is extremely useful for obvious reasons. Except for the fact that those obvious reasons just became even more obvious. All of Teostra's damage has gone up a considerable amount, and while that has made him just a little bit more terrifying in general, the most frightening effect was to his fire attacks, his elements, as we get new armor, and we have been getting some nice new armor recently. Our defense stats will keep marginally going up, as decently put together sets will end up having a higher defense cap. But what doesn't seem to be going up at all is our elemental resistances. The highest fire resistance a piece of gear can have is 4, which has been the same since the base game came out. Which means even if you manage to use a set that has the maximum base fire resistance, you will only have 20 fire resistance. Now sure, that sort of sounds like a lot for like a regular purpose, right? Well, you're about to wish it was more. Most of Teo's fire attacks will either 1 or 2 shot you if you're under 5 fire resistance and aren't using the health boost skill, including his brand new move, which I mentioned earlier, the Face Cuddle. Yes, we're calling it the Face Cuddle. What this new move does, actually, is change the spots that are safe to stand around him. With regular Teo, his armpits were generally accepted to be the good spot for a melee weapon user to stand, but this is no longer the case. This move, being as quick and damaging as it is, essentially removes the entire safe fight position from the hunt for a melee user. Speaking of a lack of safety, you remember the good old Supernova? Used to be threatening when you first got to Teostra, but over time and with better gear, we got to the point of simply being able to face tank it. Well, it's gone back to its previous state of being super threatening, which is actually fantastic. A move that looks as impressive and powerful as it does shouldn't be something that your average Joe hunter can just get hit by and walk off, but it is still something that your average prepared hunter can deal with just fine. In order to survive this with a tiny little slither of health, if you want to be stubborn and just face tank it with pure fire resistance, you will need to have yourself approximately 32 fire resist. However, if you're willing to do the advisable decision of maxing out the health boost skill so that your max HP is 200, then you'll only need 26 fire resistance. And by the way, that'll make the rest of the fight significantly easier. And just in case you'll be wondering just how tiny the chunk of health is that you'll be left on with those specific numbers, it's this tiny. However, if you want to know just how little damage you can take from this, the maximum fire resistance that you can currently reach in game is 65, which takes a supernova like this. If you're wondering what in the hell you could bring to make this scorching event a little bit easier, then the answer is actually surprisingly simple. Firstly, I mentioned them earlier, but they will still save your ass flash pods. These should be part of your everyday item set, but that doesn't make them any less important for this quest specifically. They can and will save your life, so be ready to make use of them. As far as mantles go, it is not at all a bad idea to bring a fireproof mantle for this fight, as it simply reduces the ever-loving crap out of your fire damage intake. Make sure you grab your handy-dandy temporal mantle, as for these Arch Tempered fights, it will probably never fall out of favor. It is just really good for this type of fight. And lastly, Rocksteady is pretty good against Teostra, as he has very few multi-hits, but really Rocksteady just sort of helps you go for speed rather than safety, as you can die quite easily with Rocksteady up just through a lack of need to be careful. So, personally, my recommendations are Fireproof and Temporal. However, if you feel comfortable, take Rocksteady. On a note of group hunting, if you happen to be one of the happy-go-lucky hunters willing to pick up ye old horn of hunting, which, by the way, is legitimately one of my favorite weapons in the game these days, and fashion yourself a slick new Rodobon horn, you can provide your entire party with an extra 10 fire resistance. Why is that so important? It's only 10, right? Well, remember earlier when we went over the fire resistance needed to break through a supernova in one piece? Well, if your party is smart enough to at least attempt to engineer their build towards the monster they're fighting, if the monster's somewhat difficult, and they manage to either get a relatively neutral fire resistance of only 1 while having 3 points in health boost, or 7 fire resistance without health boost, and then eat a veggie platter for 15 elemental resist from the beautiful Meowscular chef,
I'm bringing sexy back.
then the addition of the extra 10 fire resistance from your Rodobon horn will be just enough to make them survive the catastrophic failure of getting hit by a small nuclear blast. Massive oopsie of getting hit in the face by a semi-nuclear blast. That just about covers all the mechanical knowledge that will help you get through AT&T as an already seasoned hunter. But what could you possibly do for the rest of your day now that your original plans were ruined by being such an effective killing machine? Well, if you are me, you will reflect on the fight, and if you are still me, you will come to this conclusion. Arch Tempered Teostra is a good Arch Tempered monster. The strange thing with my opinion on this one is that if you had asked me the same question when he first came out, my answer would have been pretty much the opposite, because I didn't really think about the context of his changes, at least not as a melee user. From a simple point of view, this Teostra feels harder. And while it may be hard to put your finger on it first, his added difficulty is actually near entirely owed to his singular new move. Removing the armpit as a safe spot to deal damage does one of two things. It will either force you to be careful around his face, which will make it difficult to reach your full damage potential, or it will force you to relocate completely to another part of his body, such as his elbow. Sure, other moves can hit you there, but it does become the new safest place, as the moves that do hit you there won't hit as hard. But the big downside of moving away from his armpit is that you'll no longer be able to easily hit his head. Without the ability to hit his head, Teo's kill time actually drastically increases. Sure, they only doubled his health pool as a whole for the Arch Tempered version, but if you are unable to consistently hit his weakest point, then it suddenly feels like he got buffed a lot harder than that, and this makes the fight even longer. Then you add on the extra damage that all of his other abilities do, and he is suddenly a very threatening monster that offers quite the drawn-out fight, which is an incredible thought. The devs added one move, and that one move essentially redesigned the flow of the fight for 11 out of 14 weapons. On top of this, we also got an Arch Tempered Kushala sighting, which, while it doesn't really improve on the fight itself, it is definitely cool to see their turf war a few times, as it's super rare to find them together out in the wild. And on top of that, it helps build interest for Arch Tempered Kushala in September. It's getting quite hard to reflect on the Arch Tempered system as a whole. Arch Tempered Kirin had non-existent changes, Arch Tempered Val with no new moves, but he'd fought in different areas and had the addition of an Odogaron in his quest. And now Arch Tempered Teostra has gotten a single move, but the experience of fighting him has changed drastically because of it. With what we know about Arch Tempered Kushala, I am about 95% terrified to fight him, but the other 5% is super interested to see what they do with this system in the future. I've been Cotton Dinosaur. Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the little notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.